Good afternoon, everyone, or evening, depending where you're watching from. Maybe morning. I don't think we have too many people watching who it's morning for, but I do know we have some Irish girls who might be tuning in today. And one very special, well, not more special than other Irish girls, but more special today because it's her birthday. So very happy birthday to Laura Crawford if you're tuning in today. I don't know if I'm going to get to you before you go to bed. No, you're 5 hours ahead. So you're having supper. So I hope you have a good birthday supper and enjoy our broadcast today. Be sure to stay tuned for the end to find out how you might win a book on your birthday, Laura. And that goes for all of you as well. You could win a book on Laura's birthday too. So welcome to our final edition of Friday Fellowship Live for spring 2021. We're going to be taking a break for the summer. So this is our last one. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's April Hardwick, and my husband and I serve the mission in Northern Ontario. You can find out more about the mission if you're not familiar with us on our website or by calling the head office. We have staff almost all the way across Canada, and we serve local churches in a number of capacities. So if you think there's something that we could do for your church and you're local to a worker, please feel free to get in touch with us, either through the head office or you can find information for the different staff in different areas right there on the website. So summer is upon us. What are your plans for this summer? As things start to open up a little more, it feels like we can actually make plans again, which is really exciting. Let us know in the comments, what are you excited for? What might your summer look like? And if you are local to the Milton Camp Center and you're looking for something to do a few Sunday evenings this summer, starting this Sunday, June 20th, and then every third Sunday from now until September, at 6 p.m., we're going to be having drive-in services there, and this will include music and a time of testimony and a guest speaker every week. So if you're able to join us for that, that should be a great time of fellowship and worship. So again, if you need more information about that, please feel free to contact Donna in our main office, and she will be able to let you know everything you need to know to join us for that. So summer for the mission generally means that we are heavily involved in children's ministry. Our summer focus tends to shift, and summer looks like kids for us, for most of the workers. And although this summer and last summer obviously have looked different, we are very excited that we are able to have camp in some capacity at both our BC Center and our Milton Center this year. And there are a number of VBSs that are being planned for in-person this summer across the country, which is so exciting to see happening again. Mark and I were actually introduced to the work of the mission because of a summer VBS. We needed help with one of our VBSs, and we were in Quebec at the time. And Quebec is originally where I met my guest today. Ann-Margaret Hovsepian is a writer and illustrator from Montreal, Quebec, and she is joining us today from there. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on now. There we go. Hi, Ann. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm just turning you up a little bit because I realized my volume was all the way down and I couldn't hear you. But I can hear you perfect now that I've actually fixed my computer. So, obviously, I've known you I was trying to figure out the first time I met you, but I can't think of the first time we met. I know it must be at least 15 years because we've been in Ontario for 9 years this year. And I know I met you quite a while before we left Quebec. So,
I think we have more than one sort of connection.
I think so too.
You worked at camp with my niece, and then you went to Bible college with one of my friends.
Yeah. So I feel like I've known you for a very long time, which I probably have in some capacity. So I know a bit about you and a bit about your story, but you're new to everyone else today. So I wondered if to start, you could just share a little bit of your story, who you are, and what you do.
Sure. So I was born in Montreal. I've lived here my whole life. And grew up in a Christian home. My dad's a pastor, actually, a volunteer pastor. He's 82, still pastoring, still has his own business. So I've grown up in a Christian environment. I went to Christian summer camp as a camper, also later on worked as a counselor, been involved in children's ministry, youth ministry, now more into women's ministry. But, you know, as a child, it's kind of interesting that the journeys that we take. As a kid, I was really into creative hobbies and did a bit of writing and art and things like that. But I don't know if it was the school system or my idea of what people expected of me. I ended up studying, going more towards science, and actually studied chemistry in college. But, you know, clearly God had other plans. And I ended up working for a magazine publisher when I was 20. I was there for about 4 years. And then I decided to quit my job and start working from home. And so for the last 25 years, I've been freelancing a little bit as an editor, a little bit as a writer, just trying different things. I guess it was about 10 years ago, I started to, just as a hobby, I started to dabble in art journaling and putting pictures on Facebook. And a few people said, oh, you know, these doodles, I would love to color them in. You should do a coloring book.
I think I was one of those people.
Probably, yeah. And, you know, one thing led to another, and editors I had worked with encouraged me. And so since 2015, I've actually, I've created a couple of my own coloring books, but also contributed to multi-artist coloring books. And yeah, so it's been, I mean, I'm still writing, but trying to go a little bit more into the illustration side. And actually this summer, I was sharing with you, I'm taking a couple of art business courses and working toward developing more of an art business. So we'll see where that goes. It's in the early stages, but I'm hoping by fall and winter, I'll have a sort of a clearer idea of where that's going.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So on your website, if right on your homepage, you mentioned that faith and joy are major themes in your own life, which I can testify to for sure. And that you love helping other people find both of those things. And today we're going to give away a copy of this book, but I think this, I have to get it right. There we go. This book, Restore My Soul, is a great example of how your work encompasses both faith and joy. But when I first met you, Illustrator wasn't part of your bio yet at all. You were just a writer, not just a writer, but you were a writer. I knew you, I think the first book I ever bought of yours was the devotional for young girls, the first one, and then the second one as well for my girls, which they've loved. But can you talk a bit more about your journey, how God led you from just writing, from being a writer, which you did, like you said, for many years through the magazine and then freelance, to illustrating? Like, what did that look like as God led you down that path?
Yeah, for sure. You know, even with the books, I was just writing freelance articles for magazines and newspapers, a little bit general market, but mainly for Christian publications. And then, but because I had been involved with children's ministry and youth ministry, you know, my heart was also there and just wanting to find ways to do outreach, to share biblical principles and in an interesting way that engages young people. And so I would just jot down notes in a notebook, and I kind of came up with this idea. This is going back to probably 2004 or 5 or something like that. And I shared with a friend an idea I had for a project for preteen girls, but I still wasn't thinking of it as a book. I was thinking maybe this could be some kind of church program, or I don't know, something I put together to send out to young girls.
Right. And
so anyway, I shared this with a friend, and he said, oh, you know, why don't you, I was thinking maybe this could be a book. I don't know. Anyway, so a friend really encouraged me to work on it and give myself a deadline and put together some kind of outline. And that was the first year that I attended the Evangelical Press Association conference in the States, which I've been going to almost every single year since. And it's interesting because that convention is really for publishers of Christian magazines and newspapers. It's not really about books. It's not a writer's conference. but I can see now, looking back, that I was in the right place at the right time, because I took a workshop called Writing Your First Book Proposal, which was a little bit random in the context of the conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it was the only thing that seemed interesting in that particular time slot, and I had my notes with me. And so the instructor of this workshop was a literary agent, and he started off by saying, "I promised my wife I will not come home with any new clients, so like basically don't approach me," you know. But I wanted to at least pick his brain a little bit. So very nervously at the end of the workshop, I approached him and I said, "You know, I've got an idea for a book, but I have no idea what the next step is." So he encouraged me to sit with him at supper time that evening. And he took a look at my outline and he loved it. And he said, "I want to follow up on this." He said, "Send me an email when you get back. I'll sort of coach you through the process of writing a book proposal." And so I did. And he did end up becoming my agent. He took me on as a client.
Of course, yeah.
You know, eventually. And that really opened the door for me in terms of connecting with book publishers. So that was the one-year Designer Jeans Devo, which came out in 2007 and is now out of print, actually.
And then, it really?
Yeah. So I have some copies at home. The interesting thing with it being out of print is I can now use that material elsewhere. So
of course, yeah.
I'm thinking about sort of creative ways to recycle that material. And anyway, and then that led to the other two books, the Truth and Dare series. And so, you know, having made connections with some book publishers and editors that work for book publishers, when I started to post my doodles, and I'm friends with a couple of my editors on Facebook, one in particular, who has really encouraged me. And she sent me a private message and she said, "You know, I think you should do a coloring book." And so she tried to sort of arrange something with her publishing company. It didn't pan out, but then Restore My Soul, Tyndale picked up that idea. And then, so this editor friend of mine, she was the one who was working on these multi-artist projects. And I have now done 4 of them for Waterbrook. So yeah, it was just, you know, I think that desire to, and I'm not, you know, a professionally trained illustrator, but, you know, I doodled a lot as a kid, and it's just, I guess that form of expression, just drawing cute little flowers and images and turning them into, you know, maybe coloring pages that someone else can then enjoy and color in. And it's still a process, you know, and then lettering. Part of that has been my lettering. And I took, so several years ago, I took 2 calligraphy courses. And although I'm not necessarily now doing very traditional calligraphy, the principles I learned of, you know, the shapes of letters and how to form words and, you know, just the whole process of lettering, I've been able to incorporate that into my illustrations and add Bible verses or
beautifully.
Thanks. And so it's just, and I have found so much joy in this form of creative expression. And especially when I get the responses from people who also enjoy them. And so, yeah, I've just been praying, you know, Lord, if this is a gift you've given me that I should be using and exploring and developing, I want to do that. And so, you know, writing is one way of reaching out to people, and then illustration is another way, and different people respond to one or the other. So
absolutely.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, like, that's one of the things that I was so excited I was excited that you were going to write a women's devotional anyway, having gone through your girls' devotionals. Like, I very much appreciated, as my girls grew up, that your devotionals, even though they were geared for, you know, younger girls, preteens or that age group, they're not fluff. And so much of what I found for their age group at the time, I'm not in that right now, I will be again, but was just, it was very fluffy. It was very surface. It wasn't getting them into their Bibles or getting the word into their heart, any of that. It was just more, you know, topical ideas. So I was so excited about you doing a women's devotional. And then also just the aspect of knowing that there would be, there's at the time when Restore My Soul came out too, and just before, there were so many coloring books and stuff coming out that it was big, right? But just that knowledge that anything that you did was going to have the word in it, and it would, it was going to be something that maybe you could give to someone that, you might not give someone a woman's devotional, but you could give them a coloring book that has a women's devotional in it.
Well, and it's interesting you said that, because when we pitched the idea to Tyndale, the publisher of Restore My Soul, that was my first attempt at producing a coloring book. And now when I look back at it, my illustrations have come a long way. And I appreciate that people tell me they love those illustrations. Sometimes I wish I could go back and redo some of them, because I've learned some techniques. And
I think that's life as an artist, right?
Exactly. And so I said to Tyndale, I said, look, I'm not necessarily pitching this as a coloring book, because as you said, that was the peak time that grown-up coloring books were hitting the market. It was a big deal. I said, this is a devotional book with coloring pages. The coloring pages was sort of a complementary feature to that. And I really wanted, and I think that's what they liked about it, that it was, and I think that was probably the first devotional coloring book on the market. Where
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a couple since then. But that kind of made it stand out, I guess, to make it a little bit different. But I really wanted to, and actually what I did was I wrote the devotionals, and then I drew the coloring pages to complement the devotionals, and not the other way around. I thought that was really important too, because the coloring pages are there to give an opportunity to the reader to, not just read the devotional and then walk away, but to sit down and meditate on it or pray about it as they color. That was important for me, that the content and the biblical message or the inspirational message be the priority.
Yeah. Well, it was, for sure. It is. So, as I've spoken with people over the course of the pandemic, I find that most people, if not everyone, I don't want to speak for everyone, but most people have experienced some level of lack of motivation or low energy. I know that's been the case at times for me as well. And working from home was normal for you, but being stuck at home is not normal for anyone. So how, over the course of, the stay-at-home orders in Quebec and all of that, how have you managed to stay inspired to continue to create content? Because this is your livelihood, right? You need to be creating content. How have you done that over the course of the pandemic?
So there have been a couple of interesting things that happened. One was, so this Evangelical Press Association conference that I mentioned, normally that's in April. So that was just around the time that the pandemic started last year.
Right.
And they decided, okay, we're going to do it virtual. And we, so I'm an associate member as a freelancer, because I'm not a publication.
Right.
And so over the years, I've gotten to know other freelance writers, and we've become, like a little family kind of thing. And so we thought, why don't we have our own Zoom meeting and just connect with each other, beyond the actual conference. And so I think there were like 17 of us on that call or something. And it was just so encouraging to reconnect with these people that I wasn't going to see in person. And then we thought, well, why don't we do this on a monthly basis or something like that? And we're not 17 people every time. Sometimes we've been 4 or 5. And yet just, that monthly time of catching up with other freelancers who were going through similar challenges, whether it was working from home or dealing with a pandemic or, finding freelance assignments. So that kind of connection and support was really helpful for me. And it was a great way for me to also support others and just feel like I was part of this community. Yeah. And then I heard about, I think it was about 3 weeks, there was an online creative summit. There was a small fee for it, but there was a whole series of webinars on creativity and branding and social media and just all, different aspects for people who are in creative fields. And I wasn't super busy with work at that time. So it was a great time for me to plug into this. And so for a few weeks, I just, was watching these things, taking notes, brainstorming my own ideas. And that was really inspiring. It got the ideas flowing. And even though I wasn't necessarily working on anything specific at the time, that sort of started this whole process for me to even get to this point a year later where I'm really serious about, developing this art business and investing in courses that are going to get me there. But it's taken sort of that whole year of developing different ideas and brainstorming them with people. And then actually last summer, another thing that happened with 3 freelance writers that I know, we thought, well, we're used to working from home. Like you said, a couple of us had been doing it for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
We thought, well, maybe we can help other people who are now finding themselves working from home and aren't sure, how do I set things up? How do I deal with the different challenges? And how do I set up boundaries with my family or my neighbors? And there's so many questions that came up for people. So we collaborated and wrote an ebook called The Joy of Working at Home.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon Kindle. And there's a link to it on my website.
On your website, yeah.
And so, we collaborated on that project. And I mean, we haven't done a super good job of marketing this book, but even there, it was, just another example of an opportunity I had to collaborate with other people and to share ideas. And maybe clearly that book is not going to be a bestseller, although the people who have bought it and read it have given me really positive feedback on it. And yet, that was sort of a launching pad for other ideas and maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. And so, it's been kind of an interesting year. There have been times I was miserable and, wanting to go to a restaurant with friends or, when we had to close the church for several months. And everyone I talk to has been able to identify their own silver linings and, just positive things that they've been able to find in this situation. So for me, it was really kind of like an incubation period of just a lot of creative ideas just coming out either on my own or in collaboration with other people. So.
I think that is something that definitely fuels us, right? Is that community. And whether we're finding that, in person, which we can't, or online, I think that that's something that's just continues to show that it's important. I think in the times where we feel the lowest, if we can fellowship in some way with people, it definitely helps. So, and then to see just how, God orchestrated that, that you already know all the ins and outs of working from home, and so many people, this is a brand new thing, right? So that's really neat to see. So I guess just in I was reading through your newsletters as I was thinking of this week again. I get them on Mondays, but I thought I'd look back through it. And one of the recent ones, I don't think it was the last one, but one of the most recent ones, you asked the question, what have you missed during the last 15 months that you're looking forward to doing again as soon as you're allowed to? So for my last question, I'm going to turn that back to you. What are you looking forward as restrictions lift? And then I always like to leave people with a prayer point for our guests. How can we be praying for you as things open up? It's going to look different. Your dad's going to be going back to 2 jobs. And I know that for you too, right? I know church is not a paid job for you, but there's a lot going on in the church that logistically, as you guys reopen there. Are churches open in Quebec now, or?
Yeah, so we've been open for a while. There was a limit on number, but our church is small enough that we were able to, and we have people who are listening in on Zoom, so that has brought our number to a good number that we've been able to meet, and they've just opened it up again so we can have 100. So, but we're not doing all of our meetings in person at this point. Like our Tuesday night Bible study, we've been doing it on Zoom because we're actually getting more people. Some of our shut-ins and elderly.
I think a lot of people have found that, right? It's
eventually. I mean, and those are things too, like just having deacons board meetings and thinking, okay, so when do we go back to in person? I mean, our Sunday services were we've set it up so that people can join us by Zoom and listen in. But when you're doing a Bible study or a women's fellowship and there's a group discussion,
it's trickier, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure out, okay, how can we do it so that, anyway, it's a work in progress. But.
Yeah. So, and I know that like some of those decisions and some of those things are going to fall to you as a pastor's kid still, and a volunteer in your church, right? So, what are you looking forward to, and then what can we be praying about for you as even in work or whatever, church work, whatever?
Okay. So I mean, and I think I mentioned it in the newsletter that one of the things I've missed, and maybe it's petty, but I miss eating in a restaurant, dining in and just, skip the dishes kind of gets old after a while. I cook at home. Yeah. But, just, being able to go for coffee with a friend and or have a nice dinner with my whole family, my sister and her kids. And, so that's one thing, but just even having people to my home, I think hospitality is really important. And every so often I would invite maybe newcomers to the church. I'd invite them over for fellowship or just having friends over. And so I'm actually, one of the things I had mentioned is I'm just in the process of setting up a new office and art studio. And so, I'm looking forward to being able to invite friends or the young girls from church over for a craft event. And let's make Christmas cards together.
Oh, I wish I was closer now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you're ever in Montreal.
All right.
I love doing things like that, and so I'm looking forward. And, I used to think I was an introvert. I'm starting to call myself more of an omnivert or ambivert, whichever is because I love people. I love to spend time with people. But yeah, I definitely get my energy from being alone. And I think it's just, those gatherings, some of that social, sorry, my phone is.
That's okay.
And having, and the other thing too at church is being able to have our monthly praise lunch and just potluck dinner, because those are the times where you really
my 5-year-old doesn't remember what potluck is.
Oh no.
She was like, is potluck a real thing? We were like, it is a real thing.
Yeah. I just find those are Bible study and worship. I mean, those things are the meat and bones of being in church. But those dinners, or even just the coffee time after church, to be able to just catch up with people and find out what's going on in their lives, and or giving newcomers an opportunity to connect with people in the church. So those are definitely things I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, awesome. So how can we pray for you?
Oh, I think as I'm really seeking God's direction with some of these new ventures and what kind of creative projects He wants me to focus on and put my energy in. And just that whatever I do, I want it to, I guess I have two goals for any creative project I work on. One, that it would glorify Him, and second, that it would bless others. And like you said at the beginning, joy and faith are really sort of key values that I have. And so, and I know that, so many people are struggling and just down, and, this pandemic has been heavy on a lot of people. And so, if I can offer even a little burst of joy or sunshine through my writing or through my artwork, that's really my goal.
All right. That's a great prayer request. So something that we used to do regularly on Friday Fellowship was to give a book away. And we haven't done that in a while, but I thought since this was our last broadcast and you are a writer, we should bring that back. So Ann-Margaret has this book, Restore My Soul. I can't, my camera's backwards. So
I know it's almost hard to.
I know it's hard to figure out where I'm supposed to be. And it is a wonderful, like we said, devotional book, but then on every side, there's also an illustration.
See, joy. There it is.
Joy. There. I didn't even plan that. but it is, and it wonderful gift for someone also, or a wonderful gift for yourself. So she will be sending one of these books to the winner, and she's also volunteered to a signed copy of one of these books. And she's also volunteered to send one of her beautiful hand lettered bookmarks that I couldn't find my bookmark. I wanted to bring it to show, but that will have the winner's name on it. So to be entered into our draw, all you have to do is comment on this post and answer the question that I asked at the beginning of the broadcast. What are your plans for the summer, and what are you looking forward to? And if you'd like an extra entry, you can share this broadcast with your friends, and I'll enter your name twice. So I'll be drawing at noon Eastern tomorrow. So if you don't get to watch us live today, I know some people can't because they're at work, you'll still have time. So Ann-Margaret, if they don't win the book, I know they can still get a signed copy. I know they can buy on Amazon or whatever, but I know they can still get a signed copy directly from you, right? What is the best way to contact you for that?
So if you go to my website and click on contact, you can send me an email.
Okay.
I can get that information out, and shipping is not too bad. Like, so if someone's in Canada, I think it's about $6.
Oh, that's not bad at all. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they can just send me an email. I mean, it is available on Amazon and I think through Christian book distributors. But certainly if someone wants it signed, then I'm happy to do that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I saw actually, you had mentioned too that someone in the States had ordered a bunch of copies for you to give out.
Yeah. So one of the things, I actually ordered a lot of inventory of these coloring books. And so I've offered, and I can forward that information to anyone as well, because it was in my last newsletter. In fact, if someone goes to my website, there's a link to sign up for my weekly newsletter, which is called Whimsy and Wisdom. And that link will actually show the archives of past issues. So I believe it was in the one of last issue. Okay, that's not helpful because they're gonna have anyway. So whatever. So this Monday was the 14th. So I think it would have been the June 7th edition. Okay. So if they click on that, they can see the details. But yeah, so basically, I offered that if anybody wanted to buy, bulk copies to give as gifts or whatever, I would give them a discount. And then a couple of people suggested, well, like I got this friend in the States that you mentioned, she said, well, I'm too far for you to ship them to me, but what if I bought some copies and then you could donate them to wherever, whoever you think needs them, or to a charity or something like that. So she and her husband actually bought 30 books, sent me money for the value of 30 books. So 25 of those books have actually gone to a women's shelter in Montreal. And then the other 5 will go to other people in need. So yeah, I thought, that's kind of a cool way to do it as well. Yeah. Just if there is a ministry, or, whether it's a seniors home or a women's ministry or something like that someone wants to contribute these books to, I'm happy to do that. And if it's in Montreal, I don't mind. Like with Logifem, I went and delivered them myself. Right. So yeah, I can do that for a local ministry.
That's fantastic. And what a great inn that is too. Like we said, you might not be able to drop off a box of women's devotionals, but if it's coloring books, that just happened to have a women's devotional in them. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you joining us this Friday. It's Friday. So have a great weekend. And
thank you, April.
Soon. And yeah, we will make sure that we link people to, if they don't win, that they can get a copy of your book from you.
Perfect.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye. And I hope all of you have a wonderful summer. Don't forget to stay in touch if you'd like to keep up with the mission. I think probably the best place to do that is on our Facebook page. So make sure that you've liked the page and you'll see our updates over the summer. I'm sure you'll get a few pictures of what's happening at camp. And then don't forget about those drive-in services in Milton if you're local. I know that will be a time of blessing for many people. As we talked about, that one of the best ways to find energy again, even if you're an introvert over this pandemic, I think, is to fellowship with other people and to come together to be able to worship the Lord together. I think there will be something special in that this summer, especially as we meet I know across Ontario, a lot of churches are meeting outdoors, and what a neat way to be able to sort of get around those logistics of numbers. So it's really, and to bless neighborhoods. It's really neat to see churches meeting outdoors. So have a wonderful summer, everyone, and God bless.